Volleyball is a fast-growing sport that combines the best of cooperative and competitive aspects of team play. It's exciting and fun whether you're a spectator or a participant. The fast action and strategy makes for a good all-around sport. From the beaches to school gymnasiums to the Olympic arena, volleyball is played almost everywhere. The U.S. men's volleyball team is now considered one of the top teams in the world, having won the gold medal in 1984. Presented in this three-part videotape series is their winning technique.
Having every position is almost like the quarterback because you always have so many responsibilities off the plays. So it's a good mental game too. I enjoy the part where you call your own plays and get involved in the plays a lot more than certain other sports.
The thing about volleyball that I love and that all my friends seem to love about it is that anybody can play it. You can be a novice, you can be an expert, and it's exciting, it's fun to play at the beaches, it's fun to play at picnics, and it's fun, as far as I play, very competitively. So all my friends seem to enjoy it, and I love it, and gosh, you ought to check it out.
And I think it's one of the most fantastic sports for young people in the world. And I think that it's important for you to keep a number of things in mind about our game. It's a fundamental dominated game. And there are 6 basic fundamental skills. And if you practice those skills and master them, the game is an easy game. Each skill is individual, and yet you combine them all, and each player must perform them all as a team. And it's this combination of the individual skills and the team element that's most attractive to me about volleyball. It's a phenomenally fast-growing sport, and particularly as a result of the Olympic success of our teams. I think it's particularly well suited for the scholastic environment. It's inexpensive, and it's injury-free, and it has all of the elements of a fiercely competitive sport with the individual beauty of some of our individual games like gymnastics. The first skill that we're going to be discussing is the skill of serving. Please remember that we're going to try to emphasize some key fundamental points that we have found to be successful in training the men's Olympic champion team. Serving is the only skill that the individual player has complete control over. You are totally in control of everything that occurs in this important point-scoring skill. The first fundamental that we found is important is that to be the successful server, the least amount of movement that you can possibly make improves your accuracy. So we would encourage the fewest number of steps, the fewest gross body movements. And you're going to see that when our players demonstrate the skill. In fact, we encourage no steps at all. Simply standing with your weight on the back foot here, and only shifting your weight forward from back to front. Sometimes there's going to be a small step, a slight step with the front foot. But if possible, the very smallest movements will encourage accuracy. And if you start with accuracy, then the chances of being the best server go up for you as an individual. The second point we want to emphasize is that the center of your hand is the key contact point. You keep your hand open and you want to hit the ball in the very middle point of your hand, right here. The middle point of this hand goes right on the center of the ball. If you hit the ball above, below, or to either side, then you will lose accuracy. You will also lose the ability to have the ball act as a knuckleball, and that's not going to be good for serving. So the middle of the hand on the midpoint of the ball, very important. The third thing we want to talk about is a solid striking surface. To make a solid striking surface, we recommend that you keep your fingers closed like this, not open. Keep them open when you're spiking, but not for serving. Closed like this for serving. Stiffen your wrist so that your entire hand, from the tips of your fingers to the wrist up to your elbow, acts as one surface. The entire hand through the wrist, the forearm up to the elbow is one surface. Acts together. If you break your wrist, you're losing some of the solid striking surface. So those are the three important points that we want to talk about right now. The next concept that we found to be successful is to describe the serving motion. There are, of course, lots of ways of hitting the serve. We feel that the serving motion should simulate the spiking motion. If the arm swings are the same, we found that training those two skills is facilitated and is much easier. We favor a bow and arrow arm swing which leads away from the body with the elbow. Keep the elbow very high, almost parallel with the shoulders. Draw the arm back with the elbow leading. Draw the arm back with the elbow leading. Then the shoulder rotates normally as a ball and socket joint, like this. Avoid dropping your arm down, leading back with your wrist, or any of the other variances which cause inaccurate arm swings. Elbow high, pull the arm back like you're drawing the bowstring in a bow and arrow maneuver. The next element to consider in the serve is the toss of the ball. We don't even describe it as a toss or a throw. That signifies to the athlete that the ball should be thrown in the air a high distance. We think that placing the ball, simply placing the ball in front of the striking hand, is more descriptive and is more accurate in describing what should happen in serving. We want the arm drawn back, the weight shifted, and the ball placed in front of the striking hand. And that also goes back to the first point we were talking about, which is that we want the least amount of movement possible, not only with the lower body, but also with the swinging arm and the opposite arm, which places the ball in a striking position. The last point I want to emphasize before we show some of our players demonstrating the serve is something we talk about as the striking zone. The striking zone in serving is very short, and the arm speed is very critical. We want the zone to be very short, and we want the arm velocity to be as high as possible. And this is what imparts the erratic movement to the ball, the knuckleball effect that we're after in the overhand floating serve. So I'm going to demonstrate a few, and then we're going to see our players serve the ball.
certain amount of proficiency is gained in your serve, you'll want to introduce certain tactics like varying the speed of the serve, serving deep in the court, forcing your opponents to make a long pass back up to the net, serving to a weak player or hole, or developing variation in your serve. Remember, the most important aspects of the serve are stance, ball toss, eye contact, hand and wrist action, wind up, contact, and follow through.
For the next three skills that we're going to describe, underhand passing, overhand passing or setting, and backcourt defense, we must start with a basic ready position and basic movement. It's going to be essentially the same for all three skills, and I'm going to briefly describe it right now. I want to emphasize that movement is the key to fundamental success in volleyball. And one of the points that we emphasized continually in training the men's Olympic volleyball team was what we described as between contact movement. Between contact movement may be the biggest key to the game. It's what do your players do, what are you doing as young athletes while someone else is contacting the ball. If you are simply standing and waiting to play the ball, you're probably making a mistake and you will not be in the best position to contact the ball. If you're getting ready to play the ball, if you're moving your feet, getting your body into a low position, your success rate is going to go way up. So let me describe a basic ready position. We favor the feet spread shoulder width or slightly more. Shoulder width or slightly more. We think it's important for one foot to be in front of the other, and it doesn't matter which one, whichever is comfortable for you, left in front or right in front. I'm standing with my left foot in front of my right. We think that most of the weight should be on the inside of your feet, on the ball of your foot, here. Your toes can be pointed slightly in. Your knees are naturally going to be inside the ball of your feet. And now you can angle your knees forward of your toes and further in. As you angle your knees, your center of gravity drops. The last thing you should do is put your shoulders in front of your knees. As you do that, your center of gravity further lowers. And this is the basic position to be ready to play the ball and to move. And you have to master this position. We describe volleyball being played in two zones. One zone is a high zone, and we'll describe that when we talk about spiking and blocking. The high zone occurs from the top of your head up and basically is above the height of the net. The low zone are all of the ball control skills, passing, setting, and defense. Those skills occur in the low zone from your knees to the floor. And you must get comfortable playing in this ready position with the weight forward on the balls of your feet to be effective to handle the ball.
Get to the ball early so that you have time to set up to pass or return the ball. Use short, fast steps and then a small hop to plant your feet. Stay square with the target and maintain a wide stance, knees bent, hips low, and one foot slightly in front of the other. Keep in mind, balance, staggered stance, and weight on the inside balls of the feet.
The skill we're working on right now is underhand passing. Underhand passing is primarily used to receive the serve. There are three other key elements of receiving the serve that we've emphasized in training this Olympic team. One is we would like to contact the ball on serve receive as low as we possibly can. We feel that if we train our players to contact the ball in a low position, we're forcing movement, and we are also contacting the ball when it has its least movement, so that the ball has now stopped behaving erratically. So we are trying to teach our players to get very low and receive serve as low to the ground as they possibly can, 6 inches to a foot from the ground. The second element is that we would like them to receive the ball away from their body. One of the most common errors in receiving serve is to let the ball come very close, collapse your elbows on your chest, and fight the ball away from your body. We've encouraged our players to receive the ball away from them, move into the ball, receive from a deep position and go forward. So low and very far away from the body, out in front, stretch the arms, reach, use the big muscles of your shoulder group and play the ball away from you. The third and last element that I want to talk about in serve receiving is perhaps the most key element. You've probably heard it said that the midline of your body is the aim of serve receiving. And I think under normal conditions that's the case. We agree with that. But most times the ball as it's being served moves erratically enough and quickly enough that the player has a difficult time moving his whole body in front of the ball. We think it's very, very satisfactory and in fact preferable in many instances to play the ball outside the body line rather than try to move the entire body, and simply force your shoulders and your arms to cause the ball to be deflected accurately toward the setting target. If you try to move your entire body, it's going to react slower than those very, very fine last-second movements that the ball frequently has. We encourage our players to make one movement, left, right, forward, or backward, and then when they're in the general area of the ball, use your upper body, rotate your shoulders, and make sure you're contacting the ball in this area 2 inches or so above the wrist. The most controversy surrounding underhand passing has to do with how you hold your hands. We don't think it matters very much what in fact happens with your hands. You can interlace your fingers, you can cross over your hands in this manner, you can use this style, you can grab one fist by the other. We think all of them are acceptable techniques if a few principles are followed. We've encouraged our players simply to keep the base of the palm touching on each hand. And then what they do with their fingers and thumbs is really irrelevant. The contact surface is on the wrist above the hands. On the wrist above the hands. And whether you make contact on the bone or on the underside of the arm depends upon whether your hands are flush. If the heel of your hands are flush, your contact surface will be good. It's much more important that two other mechanical principles are followed. One is that your arm and elbow are straightened. You lock your elbow. You attempt to hyperextend your elbow, forcing the arm to be straight. To get this hyperextension, you must flex your wrists down toward the floor, not up like this, but down toward the floor. If you force this downward flexion, your arms will stay straight. This will increase the surface area for contact and cause you to be better and more accurate as an underhand passer. The second important principle is what you do with your shoulders. We think the most important muscle group in underhand passing are the shoulders and the shoulder girdle muscle group area. We encourage the impetus initially to come from the shoulder group area in underhand passing. So instead of arm movements, we encourage gross shoulder movements up in here. This also forces the straight arm elbow hyperextension. And this also forces better accuracy and a better contact point with the ball just above the wrist.
When you contact the ball, keep the arm swing minimal as the ball hits just above the wrist, while the legs and hips are moving upwards. Keep the arms straight, watch the ball all the way until making contact with the arms. Contact the ball close to the ground and push or lift with your legs and hips.
The next skill that we're going to describe is overhand passing, or setting the ball. This is, of course, a key element to the game, as all of your offense revolves around the second contact, or the set of the ball. The first thing we're going to talk about is how to touch the ball, or what kind of contact you're making. And the emphasis here is on two things. One, get as many fingers as possible from each hand on the ball. Too often, only the first 3 fingers of each hand, or the first 4, contact the ball. And a principle that we think is very important is that the greater the surface area contacting the ball, the greater the accuracy of that contact. So if you can get all 5 fingers from each hand contacting the ball, that's to your advantage. And we encourage that regardless of the size of your hand. The configuration of the contact is approximately as I have described on the ball here. The important point to understand is the hands are facing each other. They are not facing away from the body. The hands are facing each other on the sides of the ball. If you keep your hand open in a very normal position and place the ball in the hand, that's the contact that you want on the ball. The next element that we're going to add to setting the ball is the position above your head that we're going to make contact with the ball. The easiest way to describe that is simply to hold the ball against your stomach with your hands in contact with the ball. Relax your arms and elbows so that there's no tension in any of the muscles. Simply raise the ball to a position on your forehead and your hairline. There is an approximate triangle from your hands to your elbows, across your chin, and up to the point of the ball. This is the most important triangle of overhand passing or setting. Your elbows should not be in tight like this, and they should not be extended out away from your body. They should be comfortable so that when you raise the ball up from your stomach, the muscles of your arms are relaxed. The next point I want to emphasize is how you make the very clean contact on the ball that's so characteristic of great setters. We describe it as a very rapid catch and throw, but another equally good way to describe it is simply a basketball dribble with 2 hands, assuming that the floor is above you. If I were dribbling the ball to the floor, I'd be contacting the ball like this, with all my fingers touching the ball. If I were to stop the ball at a point of contact, that would be the contact point. The first 2 pads of each finger on the ball. As I release the ball, I release towards the ends of my fingers, and that's what gives me the dribbling action. Please notice something very important. As I dribble the ball rotates slightly backward. The ball rotates slightly backward. Very important. It rotates backward because the contact point rotates toward the end of my fingers. The same thing happens when we're overhand passing or setting the ball. As I release the ball, it rotates off the ends of my fingers slightly. And in fact, the ball will have some slight backward rotation. Slight backward rotation. That's very important. As we dribble the ball toward the imaginary ceiling above our head. The last point I want to emphasize in overhand passing is the release of the ball and the follow-through. As the ball is being dribbled up toward the ceiling and is rolling off the ends of the fingers slightly, the hands and wrists should come together at the end of what we call a pronation of the arms. And the movement looks like this as the ball's going away. The hands close together, which also prolongs the contact with the fingers on the ball. The hands follow through in the direction that you want the ball to travel. And that also prolongs the contact on the ball and increases accuracy.
Again, the feet are planted in the staggered stance. The hands are positioned to form a pocket above the face, with the thumbs pulled back towards the eyes. Forearms are at shoulder level when the ball is contacted.
Is individual defense. We're going to talk about two elements of individual defense and really focus on one. Individual defense is based around the low ready position, and we're going to emphasize ready. You have to key on the ball, and then you have to be most ready to play the ball in a low position. And real briefly, we're going to review that low ready position. The feet are spread, the weight is over the balls of the feet, the player becomes off balance forward by putting the knees in front of the toes and the shoulders in front of the knees. And if you're in this very low ready position, then it's very easy to play a hard-driven ball out in front of you and very low. In addition to being low and being ready, defense involves lots of emergency techniques, pursuing the ball outside of your normal range, which might be within a foot or two of your shoulder on either side. You can dive or roll, or what we favor as a very common technique for both men and women is something that's been called a sprawl. And it throws your forearms forward under the ball, and we also describe this as a J stroke because that's the formation that your arms and your upper arms describe under the ball. From this very low ready position, the hard-driven ball that's in front of you, you must take a half step forward, throw your arms on the ground under the ball, make contact in this position, and here's the J. last two skills that we're going to be discussing are the most dynamic skills in volleyball. spiking and blocking. Spiking is a very complex movement that combines many elements. We're going to break spiking down and describe an approach pattern and then the arm swing and the contact of the ball separately. There are lots of ways to approach and to spike in volleyball. But as a general rule, what we're going to explain has been successful for us in all types of attacking positions and for all of the players on our team. We favor a four-step approach pattern. And if you are a right-handed attacker, we think the first step should be with your right foot. Every time a foot hits the ground, we're counting that as one step. So we're describing a right-left approach configuration. 4 steps, right-left, right-left. We like this because it most resembles a normal running pattern for a person. And it should be the easiest to integrate of basic movement skills onto the volleyball court. I'm going to demonstrate the 4-step approach parallel with the net in the background. Right, left, right, left. Four-step approach pattern. Now, 2 other things are very important about this approach. Number 1, each step should be succeedingly faster. We are trying to build velocity to the point we take off. We are trying to accelerate. So the first step is really only a preparatory step. Right. It's a small step. Right. Left is a little longer, and the last 2 are long and very dynamic. Right, left. I'll go through this again. Right, left, right, left. The last 2 steps are called step close. They're taken almost together, almost simultaneously, but the right foot does hit before the left, and therefore the left foot is the last foot to leave the ground. Here's the whole 4-step approach one more time. Right, left, right, left. Please notice the second point. The left foot, the last foot to hit the ground, is turned inward toward the center of the body, toward the body midline. The body midline, right through here. It's turned inward slightly. For a right-handed person, this is extremely important because it sets up the power base from which you hit the ball hard. This develops the torque when you're in the air that allows you to rotate and strike the ball with a lot of force. One more time on the 4-step approach. The arm swing is very important in the spiking action. The arms are swung back vigorously as far as they'll go on the 3rd step. As far as they'll go on the 3rd step. And then driven up very rapidly on the 4th. The arms should not go higher than the top of the shoulders until the feet leave the ground and you start the arm swing. 1, 2, arms back on the 3rd, up on the 4th, and then we jump. One, 2, back, up. One, two, back, up. After we're done with the approach, we have to consider the arm swing. Go back and remember what we talked about with serving. With the elbow high, pulling the elbow back with the arm parallel to the ground. That's essentially what we want to have happen when we're spiking a volleyball. The key points. The hand now is open, not closed like it was in serving, open. The wrist is very relaxed, not stiff like it was in serving. We're trying to make contact with the ball on the entire surface of the hand, the entire hand, not the small center point like serving. It's important you remember almost everything on the contact spiking a ball is different than the contact of serving a ball. The swing is the same. So to hit a volleyball, to spike a volleyball, the elbow is pulled back, the arm is rotated in the shoulder joint, and then the shoulder is thrown forward at the ball. If you can think of throwing a baseball, you can spike a volleyball. When the ball leaves my hand, it has topspin. The topspin comes because my entire hand hits the ball and the follow-through is on the top of the ball. Also, the contact point is above the midline of the ball. In serving, it was directly through the midline. In spiking, it's on the top of the midline, and so we develop topspin. When we finished our approach, the forward swing of the arms brought both arms to this point. That's when we leave the ground. When we leave the ground, the hitting arm begins that elbow retraction, pulling the elbow back and initiating the swing. If it's done vigorously, you develop lots of upper body torque or rotational force that gives the ball lots of energy. And we call that hitting the ball hard.
Following the four-step approach, the player jumps, swinging his arms to increase the upward momentum. Once in the air, the non-hitting hand is used to sight and aim, while the hitting hand is thrown up and forward so that the arm is fully extended when the ball is hit. The wrist is kept loose and relaxed. The hand is open with the finger and thumb spread slightly. The ball is first contacted with the heel of the hand, then the fingers to give a little topspin. The basic spiking tactic should be to hit high, hit hard, and hit deep. Hit to open areas of the block. Aim for blocker's fingers so that the ball deflects out of bounds. Aim for the outside hand of the blocker so that the ball rebounds out. Jump high and reach to hit over the top of the block. Hit the ball deep to the corners, or hit at half speed to put the defense off guard. All of these will help you to have a more effective spike.
Skill that we're going to deal with is blocking at the net, the first line of defense. We think it's the most difficult skill because it requires a complex set of moves that must be made in response to what the offensive attacker does. A good block, though, can score points for you almost as quickly as a good serve. The keys to blocking are watch the hitter hit the ball. You can't be a good blocker if you can't open your eyes and see the attacker hit the ball. You have to know where they're hitting the ball to be able to react as a blocker. The second key point of blocking is to cover as big an area in as controlled a fashion as possible. If you raise your hands and can get way above the net and way over the net, but your hands are apart, or one's back from the net, or your hands are closed, you will not be an effective blocker. We emphasize control when our players are in the air. Body control, and it starts from the core of your body. The force and the impetus of being in control is abdominal muscle strength. When you block, the movements come from the abdomen in here. The third important point about successful blocking is being in the right position. And that's moving laterally across the net, knowing where the hitter's going to wind up, and being in front of the point of attack. We teach our players when they're blocking to start with their hands very high. We tell them never to drop their hands below the shoulders, always above the shoulders, up in here. We want them to move with their hands up high and jump with their hands up high. So we try to teach our players never to drop their hands down in order to jump up. We would prefer to see them jump less, but be in better control with their hands up high. Second, we teach our players to keep their hands and their fingers spread as wide as possible. We would prefer to see the ball go between their hands than have their hands closed down and covering a small area. Hands and fingers open and wide. Third, and this is, I think, a key point, we try to have the hands facing out. This forces the arms to fully extend and to cover the biggest area possible. We're trying to teach our players to catch the ball, and this position seems to work best for us. Hands pointing out, arms locked, catch the ball. The degree to which you attack block depends, of course, on your size and your jumping ability. If you can't get your elbows over the net, if you can't get to your elbows above the net, then you have to block in a soft configuration, trying to deflect the ball onto your own side. This is a very difficult but necessary blocking maneuver for many players.
The block is the first line of defense against the attack. The object is to either keep the ball from going over the net, slow the ball down, or actually score points. There are two basic types of blocks. The first is the soft block. This is used by shorter players who can't jump over the net or when the player is late in moving into a position. The object is to slow the ball down and deflect it up and back to your teammates. Hands and fingers are tilted back. Hands are close to or just above the net. The second is the attack or stuff block. This is used by tall, highly skilled players who have the ability to jump and reach over the net. The object is to reach as far as possible across the net and deflect the ball sharply down into the opponent's court before the ball crosses the net. While blocking tactics will vary with the level of play and with the strategy employed against a team, the following tactics should be kept in mind. At the lower levels, use only one player to block. Don't block a player who cannot spike. Arrange rotation so strongest blocker matches opponent's strongest hitter. Stay close to the net. If possible, penetrate across the net. Read and anticipate the place of attack. Move quickly and be waiting to block. Spread fingers and thumbs to cover a large area. Think catch rather than bat and time correctly. We've now covered all of the basic skills of serving, passing, setting, spiking, and blocking. We've even introduced you to some beginning court strategies. Volleyball is an intricate game that combines certain basic principles with complicated strategies. The better you are, the more there is to the game. Let's take a final look now at the U.S. men's volleyball team and see just how they put it all together.